Up.
No, we're good.
Okay.
Thanks for joining me, everyone. Charles Moscowitz here, and welcome to the program. My guest is none other than David Horowitz, the renowned author of many excellent books, many of which I've read, including Radical Son, my favorite. And we've got BLITZ, Trump Will Smash the Left and Win. And that's the topic right now that I'd like to discuss, David, with you, because when I read the mainstream media, when I look at the Drudge Report, when I look at all the news coming out, it's discouraging. I mean, it makes your heart sink when you see that, the poll numbers and all the rest. So what do you make of it, David?
Forget the poll numbers.
Okay.
Americans are not stupid. When they're watching this, they're watching Black Lives Matter tear up the cities, beat up innocent bystanders, shoot, drive out the police, get people shot. They watch this Bubba Wallace. All this race stuff is a hoax. They don't care about black people. If they did, they'd be caring about the 104 blacks who were shot in Chicago over the Father's Day weekend. They'd be caring about the abortion mills that Planned Parenthood puts in the center of black neighborhoods. The black population would be twice its size and have twice its political clout if it weren't for all the aborted babies over the last, how many years since Roe v. Wade. So they don't give a fig for Black lives. If they did, they wouldn't be desecrating Martin Luther King's church with a funeral for this scumbag, Rayshard Brooks, who was serving a 7-year sentence for cruelty to his own children. What a monster this guy is. And that's why he resisted arrest. He didn't want to go back to jail. Why was he out? Because the COVID virus gave the Democrats, who support criminals anyway, a chance to release him from prison. People may not know these details, but they can see big things like the Bubba Wallace affair. There's another Jussie Smollett lying about, in fact, all the noose attacks have been, going back to the professor at Columbia, have been phony. Mm-hmm. Nobody has shown, if you approach all the tragedies that have occurred and that have inflamed the cities, there's no evidence whatsoever that this is racial, except for the left are racists. Black Lives Matter is a racist organization. It indicts all white people. But take George Floyd. There are 4 officers who've been charged with murdering George Floyd. One of them's African American, another is an Asian American. How is that about race? This guy was another scumbag criminal who was resisting arrest. And, he shouldn't have died the way he did. But what does it have to do with race? We don't even know what was in the head of the cop who had his knee on his neck. Yet that allowed Al Sharpton. And the fact that they chose Al Sharpton to eulogize this guy. Al Sharpton, the number 2 biggest racist in the country, tax evader, Jew hater, white hater, demagogue, to give the eulogy for this jerk, George Floyd, tells you everything you need to know about this movement. It's not about racial injustice. It's about destroying America. It's about empowering criminals to loot and rob and murder. As you can see in their liberated zone in Seattle. I mean, it's just, proposing to defund or to handcuff the police is only somebody who hates black people could do that or is completely ignorant. Because the black males, they're 6% of the population, they commit 50% of the violent crimes, that's armed robbery and murder. And 95% of their victims are black. So who do you think is going to suffer from removing the police? And people can see that. They can see that all these cities, the Wallace thing also really bothers me. I mean, here's a guy successful in it's a kind of basically a Southern sport, Um, and he turns, it's mind-boggling to even think what he did. He has this hoax about a noose and pretends to be a victim of systemic racism, of course. And he gets all these NASCAR drivers to march in a solemn march by his car, supporting him. Very touching until you find out this guy's a liar and just abusing and using his white, what do you call them, comrades.
David, I mean, you're absolutely right, of course.
The systemic racism in this country is the Democratic Party.
Yes.
There isn't a Republican in sight in any of these cities where these incidents with cops have happened. Everybody with a finger in the pot that can control the police is a Democrat. Every last one. There's not a Republican on the Minneapolis City Council. The police chief is black. The attorney general is black. The head of the city council is black. Come on. And they're all Democrats. And the Democrats,
David, you're talking about, obviously, you're giving a great alternative narrative here, one that you and I understand, one that average people hopefully understand. But the mainstream media will not cover this. What they're putting aside the fact that black neighborhoods are being looted, black businesses are being burned.
They don't say what I'm saying.
No, they don't. And that's what I'm worried about.
Americans are not stupid.
Yeah.
See those images. I just had a friend of mine say that, I said, look, if Americans weren't so good-hearted, Black Lives Matter would have set race relations in this country back 50 years. And he said, well, I think it's affected me. I can't walk in downtown Philadelphia anymore without looking over my shoulder and wondering if I'm going to be jumped and mugged by some black thugs. Because you can't watch the news, even if it's on CNN of all places, and not see these images and not be horrified by them and not hear the mayor of Seattle saying it's okay to have these anarchists take over our city. It's going to be a summer of love. No, it isn't. It's going to be a winter of mayhem is what it's going to be. So
absolutely, the anarchists.
I have to say something about my book, BLITZ. By the way, it's in the top 20. And so it shows that people are awake. But it's a guide to the Civil War we're engulfed in. In my book, I describe how the Democrat Party has become a racist party. Identity politics is a pure form of racism. That is, you're judged first by your color, skin color. That's why the Democrat Party has announced it needs a black woman to be, would be actually president because Biden is senile and demented.
Right.
How racist is that? It doesn't matter, anything else. Their chief qualification is their skin color. The Democrat Party is committed to racism, and it's in the hands of its racists. And anybody who disagrees with it on any issue will be accused of being a racist.
And that's exactly what they're doing. I mean, they accuse someone like Tucker Carlson of being a racist. I mean, anybody that doesn't goose step to the left is a racist.
Americans are not stupid, and they can see this. There are some that are fooled, probably lots that are fooled, but not enough to win a national election. And forget the polls.
Okay.
Well, these pollsters are as dishonest as the media. It's all rigged. I mean, we've seen what's happened to the political left. There may be 3 Democrats with any integrity that are public figures. One would be Alan Dershowitz, another would be Jonathan Turley, Joe Lieberman. But all the rest are willing to do anything, tell any lie, break any law in order to get rid of Trump. Which means,
well, that's what worries me, David. I mean, they've already framed the pandemic as Trump's fault, and then they come in with a couple of race incidences very predictably, and is using that. What do you think they're going to come up with next?
That's a good introduction.
Yeah.
My book does, of course, the Russia hoax. This is an act of treason, what the Democrats did. You take an incoming president who's just been duly elected by the book, and you form a resistance to him and boycott his inauguration and stoke these massive street demonstrations saying, not my president, and do everything you can to sabotage his presidency, including trying to impeach him on lies, which you knew. The Democrats knew at the beginning, before the Mueller investigation, were lies.
That's right.
And there were lies put out there because Barack Obama supported his left-wing appointments to head the intelligence agencies in a plot to overthrow the president of the United States. This is the greatest crime committed by American citizens against our country since the Civil War. Then along comes coronavirus. And lo and behold, instead of, it's a common enemy, the virus, and it's been placed there by China. China deliberately spread this virus as a biological weapon by concealing the fact that it was contagious and deadly for months. And you have the Democrats blaming Trump for 100,000 coronavirus deaths when he doesn't have control over not one healthcare system. All the healthcare systems are controlled by the governors of the states. And the worst states for the virus are Democrat states. Big surprise. The only people who could legitimately be accused of killing coronavirus patients are people like Governor Cuomo in New York, who forced nursing homes to accept COVID patients so they could infect and kill 6,000 grandmas and grandpas. That's on the head. That blood is all on the head of the Democrat Party. And people know that. People are paying any attention. Of course, a lot of people don't pay any attention. And it's hard to pay attention these days because it's so grim. Then comes along the race hoax. Like I say, there's not a Republican in sight in Minneapolis and Atlanta and Washington, D.C. and anywhere where there's an incident that's supposed to have taken place. The Democrats own every injustice in the inner city is Democrats are responsible for, insofar as policy can affect them, because they control these inner cities. And my book, BLITZ, starts with this. It says, my book opens with the question, why Donald Trump was a public figure for 30 years and a major public figure. Everybody knew who Donald Trump was. Yet nobody thought of Donald Trump as a white supremacist until the Democrats started accusing him of that because he was running against them. Now, why did they do that? I mean, this is such an obvious lie. Not that it hasn't taken in millions of people. I'm willing to support the lie. How did Donald Trump become a white supremacist overnight? And the answer is the Democrats have a dirty secret, which they have to protect, or they can't win a national election. And that is that Democrats have controlled 100% all the major inner cities in America for 50 to 100 years. Every killing field, Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, St. Louis, every one of them is 100% controlled by the Democrat Party. Every rotten school system where 40% of the Black and Hispanic kids mainly, but also poor white kids, drop out, they don't graduate high school. And 40% of those who do are functionally illiterate. Democrats have 100% control over through their communist teacher unions, which basically despise the kids. It's the teacher unions that preserve the status quo, that make it impossible to fire bad teachers, in the same way that the Democrat police unions make it difficult or impossible to fire bad police officers. This is a monstrous situation the Democrats have created. And Trump, well, first, why doesn't everybody know this? Because Republicans are cowards. And we've watched them for decades. They're afraid of being called racist, which is the Democrats' first line of defense. They don't want to be called white supremacists. So they keep their mouths shut while this atrocity is taking place. And I spent years trying to get Republicans to talk about it without any success. But along comes Trump, and Trump gave a speech in Michigan, and he said, and of course we have to remember that Trump was a liberal. Trump was a friend of the Clintons. He was a wedding guest. He supported liberal causes. So he had a clear conscience, as it were, when it came to race relations. So Trump gives a speech in Michigan. This is the first part of my book, the opening, and says, Black America, what have you got to lose by voting for me? You have no jobs. You got off the charts crime in your streets. You got rotten schools for your kids. That's what the Democrats gave you. Take a chance on me. I can't be worse than that. They don't care about you as human beings. They just care about your votes, which is true. Nancy Pelosi is a racist. Chuck Schumer is a racist. Why don't Republicans say this? Why? I mean, I don't have the platform. I can't even get on Fox these days. So I don't have the platform to reach the number of people that need to be reached. But Kevin McCarthy does. Why doesn't he call it? The only Republican who is called a Democrat, and it was a black Democrat, Elijah Cummings, a racist, is Donald J. Trump. And that's why we love him.
And David, I understand that President Trump
Cummings is a symbol, and I deal their whole battle.
Yeah.
He was the head of the Oversight Committee. He's a congressman for 20 odd years. He died worth $1.4 million, which he got out of the public purse, made himself rich, while his district is a hellhole. And when Trump said Baltimore is a hellhole, of course, they called Trump a racist because they said, it was contempt for African Americans who live there. But they can't get out. They're poor, for crying out tears. The federal government put $15 billion into Baltimore last year. Into whose pockets did that $15 billion go? A lot of it went to the corrupt, black, whatever they are, comprador class. That's what we
right, the rulers of the city.
The rulers of the inner city. The function of the corrupt Black Caucus. And you can go up to discoverthenetworks.org, Encyclopedia of the Left, and look up the Black Caucus. See how corrupt beyond belief. The Maxine Waters of this world, they're millionaires.
Yeah, I mean, David, President Trump has your book.
It was to keep the Black population in chains.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the same story every election. And President Trump, I understand, has your book. He's reading it. He likes it.
He endorsed it.
There you go. And he's actually talked about it in his tweets.
A hot book, and I was a great author. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So I hope that the Republicans can bring you into the fold a little bit there and consult with you, because you
Don't hold your breath.
You have a handle on this whole thing.
The Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a Gestapo, it's worse. It's worse than the Nazis in defaming its opponents.
Yeah,
they're worth $570 billion. It's all spent on whatever. They tarred and feathered me as a racist with no evidence. You could look. I've written millions of words. You can't find an anti-Muslim or anti-Black sentence among those million words. But when Ron DeSantis was running against Gillum, this corrupt sexual deviant, I guess you call him, whatever.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He was under investigation. I mean, he was Black, and he was calling DeSantis a racist. All the Florida newspapers, they're all leftists, they're all Democrat newspapers, picked up a story from the Washington Post that DeSantis had spoken at 4 of my events. And the Huffington Post headline was something like DeSantis hosted by infamous racist David Horowitz.
Yes, I saw that.
Oh, don't hold your breath at the. I had this epiphany years ago. In the election, I never have been involved in electoral politics. I don't see that as my role. I wrote a book in 1999. It was going to be published, called "Hating Whitey and Other Progressive Causes." And in fact, the original title was "Hating White People is a Politically Correct Idea," because I wrote a lot of books about the universities, and that was the curriculum. At the same time, Karl Rove had been assigned a book that Peter Collier and I wrote called "Destructive Generation" about the 60s. So when Bush was starting his run for president, they invited me down to Austin to talk to Bush and his staff about the left. And I had two Republican bundlers whom I knew who were behind me. Mm-hmm. And so they raised, but it was kind of in my name, $250,000 for the Bush campaign. So when Bush came to Los Angeles and held his big event, I had two tables on the stage.
Wow.
Because I
Amazing.
had more money than anybody for Bush. So the book "Hating Whitey and Other Progressive Causes" was about how the civil rights movement had become a racist, extortionist shakedown movement under the leadership of Sharpton and Jackson. So I had a moment there where I thought, and they invited me to the Hanukkah event, I have to say that, mm-hmm. at the White House. But I had a moment there, and I said, if I let this book be published with that title, I'm not going to get any more invitations.
Right.
So it only took me a moment to see that I had lived my whole life outside this. I'm not an inside player. I mean, I've done inside plays, but basically my role, as I saw it, as a former leftist, was to warn people in the same language and terms the left used to attack them, to warn them against the left, which is a malevolent, evil force in our society and culture.
Yes.
And so I went ahead and published the book, and I didn't get any more invitations to the White House.
And yet you're on the inside, I think, with President Trump, and that's the important thing. And I think that your book does lay out a blueprint for this election in no uncertain terms. I hope that it does well. It is doing well. I'd love to see you get up on the big media, and really, hopefully they're saving you for October.
Well, that's a thought. I do what I do. I don't.
Yeah, you just can keep on keeping on. But I mean, you lay it out in a way that's unlike anyone else. I mean, you flip the table and say, who is the real racist? Who is the real anti-American? Who is tearing down? Who's killing black people? Who's burning black businesses and looting black neighborhoods? It's not conservatives. It's not people who want to maintain law and order.
No.
It's a bizarre juxtaposition.
It's an odd reprise of the '72 election when Nixon ran as the law and order candidate.
Yes.
A silent majority elected him.
And I think that same dynamic may be in play here. We might have another McGovern-Nixon run. Nixon won, and it took the Democrats 30 years to come back, and they had to purge their party of all the leftists. Maybe, God willing, that's what's going on.
No.
Oh, okay.
What happened was, and this is where all the rot began. Tom Hayden organized a riot at the '68 Democrat convention with the express purpose of getting people's heads cracked, or having blood in the streets.
Sure.
I knew Tom pretty well at the time. And getting rid of Hubert Humphrey, who was a 95% ADL liberal, but he supported the war in Vietnam against the communists. And since Tom and Jane Fonda wanted the communists to win, they wanted to defeat Humphrey. And the theory was the left-wing theory of the worse the better. That's the way leftists used to phrase it. It horrified me then, and it horrifies me today. So let's have a fascist, because they thought of Nixon as a fascist, in power, and that will make people really angry, and then we can exploit the situation and win. And what happened was Humphrey was destroyed by that spectacle of the convention, and Tom Hayden and Jane Fonda led the left, which had been burning down America. That was, that was their agenda, was to burn the system down. To use Saul Alinsky's words, which he supported the burning of America.
Sure.
They led them into the Democrat Party in the campaign, the George McGovern campaign. McGovern was a Henry Wallace supporter in '48. And they created these caucuses, a Black caucus, a Chicano caucus, a Progressive caucus. And these were radicals and racists. And they took over the Democratic Party over the next 40 years. When Barack Obama was elected, they had won. But the fact that the left doesn't know what the hell it's doing, it's just a nihilistic force. It knows how to destroy. It does not have the slightest idea how to create. And as somebody who was, my deviation when I was a leftist was I read books. Well, I had two deviations. I had a nuclear family, too. I read books. And as a result, I knew that Marxism was really problematic, and that socialism didn't work, and that Russia was a nightmare, and that we weren't going to be able to create a revolution anyway. We can only wreck things, and that's why I'm no longer a leftist. But they all stayed. And what Barack Obama's 8 years showed is what the last 3 weeks have shown in spades, no pun intended, is that the left is a very destructive force. It will bring chaos and poverty to this country. It will make everybody poor if they succeed. The fact that they have a Bernie Sanders, a disgusting human being. I mean, there's so much crap put out there, praise for this jerk. I mean, here's a guy who spent his entire life. I mean, it's one thing, to make a mistake along the way. It's quite another. Spend your entire life supporting communist dictators and and apologizing for their atrocities, or pretending their atrocities aren't atrocities. And being driven by such hatred. I mean, you look at Bernie Sanders, he is a hater in the first degree. It's not an analytic thing with him. Why does he hate billionaires? He used to hate millionaires, 30 years ago, he had a party and a platform was to tax 100% all $1 million incomes. But of course, he's made himself a millionaire by stealing campaign funds. He never had a decent job in his life, but he's made himself a millionaire, so he doesn't think anything is hypocrite of saying, okay, now we'll just target billionaires.
That's so true. And, but putting aside the irony that most of these millionaires and billionaires are on the left, but we'll put that one aside.
Well, it's because there's this culture of guilt for success. I mean, what does Bill Gates have to apologize for? He's changed the lives of millions of people. He's changed everybody's life.
Of course, he created wealth where it didn't exist. I mean, he's incredible.
I skipped over this when I was talking about me being a reader of books. I've
Yeah.
read whole libraries of socialist books, Marxist books. There's not a chapter in any of them about how to create wealth. It's all about taking it away. Socialism is theft, and socialists are criminals. Either they're criminals in their deeds because they succeeded, or they're criminals in their wishes. Because if they do succeed, it's going to be robbery and impoverishment for the rest of us.
And this country is supposed to be is the antithesis of that, and we always were. And yet they've made major inroads, particularly among young people. The polls show that younger people, I think something like 40% of them think there's something good about socialism.
That's because they're ignoramuses.
Yeah.
You know, the 60s had the slogan, you can't trust anybody over 30. The reality is you can't trust anybody under 30 because they're stupid. They don't have the life experience. They don't have the information. Why would you trust a 20-year-old who thinks it's a good idea to get rid of the police? You should have.
Yeah, while they sit in their, nice white towers. I mean, they're going to leave the inner city supine to terrorists and drug dealers.
They're standing calling black cops racists. These white jerks.
Oh, my God. It's disgusting.
Yes.
David Horowitz, again, the book is BLITZ. Trump will smash the left and win. It's great to talk to you. It's very bracing. I hope to be in touch with you as the election proceeds.
Sure.
I really want to thank you for joining me this afternoon, David Horowitz.
Thanks for having me, Charles. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David.